Okay. Margot would tell you otherwise. I hope like post-session you guys sit around and have drinks and talk about what a pain it is to monitor me. Oh, good. Morning. The big excitement when I go home after these days is my kids know that I will lose my voice. It's their favorite thing. Like, oh, it's conference time? Mom will not have a voice for the next. And I don't live with them anymore, but they call me every day, so they know that my voice is gone. I'm going to start out by asking you a one word of how you're feeling, a one word of like a takeaway of how the conference has gone so far, just one word. I'm going to start in the back with Faith. And then Faith, you're going to, then we'll go to Michelle and we'll go all the way across this way. Will you guys share a word? Thank you. And then we'll come this way, and then we'll come up and around. I don't know, math is hard, and so is geometry and movement and maps. So just, you'll figure it out. Yeah, snaky. Thanks. Yes. Faith, one word.
One word of how I feel?
Yep.
I would say content.
Content? Beautiful. Michelle?
Full.
Fulfilled. Grateful. Darcy? One word on how you're feeling.
I'm fired.
Yeah. That's okay. Happy. Awake. Good.
Inspired, and then we have full and empowered.
Thank you. Thanks, Elena, for doing that. Tori? Warm. Lenny? Great. Hopeful. Inspired. You can use it.
I'm going to
Content. Awareness. Kathy. Fulfilled. Awesome. Mars. Rejuvenated. Purpose. Awesome. Re-energized. Mike, one word how you're feeling today. Excited. Encouraged. Good. Megan. Connected. Intrigued.
I said pass.
Do you want us to come back to you?
Yeah. Well, I still feel like combobbled.
That's okay. Combobbled is an okay word. Yeah. Off. Good.
hopeful.
Energized.
Good. Pumped? Ooh, I like that word. Excited, JC? Hopeful? Recharged? Pinterest?
My individualization is going my strategic is going like fireworks. So I'm overwhelmed.
Okay, awesome. Mary? Energized? Rejuvenated? Hopeful? Excited? Uplifted? Ready? Joyful? Inspired? Refueled? Ready? Solid? Excited? Off. That's a good. That's good. Hi. Motivated? Encouraged? Justin? Yes. Scattered. All right. So I want you to think about the word that you shared, and I want you to look at your top 5 and draw the connection. So as we talk about strength strategy, I want you to know it's just absolutely that simple. It's that simple. We're not going to overcomplicate this. We're going to think about how your natural talents and what you do naturally well will lead your mentors and mentees to talk more about strengths. You can start off a conversation with anybody with a one word, how are you feeling? And what I like to do, and I forgot to do because I am owning my growth mindset this conference, I forgot to do the Unique Awesome Name Card activity at the beginning of new mentor training, those who have seen that before. I forgot to close with the bucket book and the bucket drops. I forgot all about it. And then I wanted to do one word takeaways at the start of conference and throughout the conference, and guess who forgot about it till today? So I'm owning my growth mindset. I also want to own that strength strategy has not been an overnight sort of thing, and it ebbs and flows. And knowing that I lead with input, communication, strategic woo, and empathy, how I'm feeling right now are a lot of the words that you shared. I'm feeling like I've got a lot of work to do, but I'm excited and I'm hopeful. And I loved the sense of home and energy and fun that I'm seeing from this group that I haven't seen in a while. And I'm also really excited about our focus on strengths. So those of you who have done strengths before as a chapter, I want you to know before I even get into this that it's going to be okay. Because I'm going to change things up a little bit this year, and I'm going to offer some things in a little bit of a different way. And I know sometimes that change feels like, can't use the word that I was, change does not always feel good. I thought of a word, but I thought I should keep it to myself. Change sometimes can be an evolution. Sometimes change can be immediate, but I want you to know this is kind of like we were the last couple of years, a hybrid. So I have done strengths in person for the most part over the years. I was a team of one, and I was a human of one, and I could not get to all of your communities. I still am a team of one when it comes to strengths. We've got some more people getting certified and learning about their strengths teaching, but it's still kind of a team of one when it comes to implementation. We know that that's not serving you. We know that you have mentors who want to do strengths yesterday. We know that you as a community want to do strengths with your mentors and mentees yesterday. We want to be able to implement a little bit more about that. So for those of you who are new to strengths, I'm going to talk a little bit about the history and the why behind it, and then we're going to dive into the how. So I mentioned this earlier. Don Clifton's research was all on those index cards about what is right with people. He found this common trait that people who knew their talent were more likely to be successful, more likely to achieve their full potential. When you think about Teammates' mission, we want to help students to find their full potential. So really thinking about how they apply their talent. Now, I think we have such a great partnership with Gallup for so many different reasons. We've been talking about hope. They've been talking about hope for a lot longer than we have. We've been talking about strengths. They've been studying, measuring strengths. They've been studying and measuring engagement for a long time, so we want to continue that partnership and learn from them. But when I see this, I also think of the fact that this means we're not weakness-focused. So I'm not thinking about the talents that are in my lesser strengths. I'm not thinking about what I'm not good at. And when I share this with high school students, I often share that my last name, Horn, is synonymous with athlete in the community of Exeter where I grew up in. Does anybody know where Exeter is or have heard of Exeter? In 1986, magic happened in Exeter. We won the boys and girls state basketball championship, D1. That was like straight up magic. There's pre-86 in Exeter and there's post-86 in Exeter. If you drive through Exeter, you'll see on the bottom of our Exeter sign, like 1986 was straight up magic. That's not what it says, but pretty close. And I was a kid in the stands cheering on my cousin Ben, who shares the same last name as me. I'm a good cheerleader. And I had a gentleman from the Journal-Star come up to me, and he said, "Are you one of the Horn kids?" And I said, "I am. I'm Allison." And he said, "I want your autograph. You're going to be an athlete one day, and I want to capture it now because all the Horn kids are athletes." Not this one. And that gentleman very unintentionally put me in a box and a label that I would never, ever fit. Now, I will not deny that I spent a lot of years and tears trying to be an athlete. I grew up on a farm, and when I wasn't roller skating, I was shooting hoops, trying to become better at basketball. And I didn't feel that I felt it, like I fit in. I struggled with that a lot. I was the band nerd. I was super smart. I was all of those things, but I wanted to be the athlete. And so there were a lot of years and tears in which I struggled, and I was lucky to have a Mrs. Weber, and I was lucky to have these amazing teachers and even coaches who said, "Allison, have you thought about the one-act play? Have you thought about speech? Have you thought about cheerleading?" And because of that, I believe I'm standing in front of you today because of those people who saw my talent. But I had to get to a place of understanding that talent and maximizing on it. I remain the only Horn kid to graduate from Exeter who is not an athlete. A couple years ago, I shared that at a high school conference where my cousin Ben's daughter was attending, and she came up and she was like, "That's my dad." And I said, "Oh, yeah, we know, Hannah, right? That is your dad." He still holds a state basketball record for the most three-pointers, I think, in a D1 game. And she said, "I didn't realize the story." So I think there are lots of students who are wondering, how do I fit? Who am I? And how can I be encouraged for my natural talent? So I do have state records, by the way, not state records, state medals, no records. You want to guess what my medals are in? Speech, one-act play, band. That's right, Michelle, you had insight into that one. So what are strengths? Clifton Strengths Finder, lots of years of research, decades of research where Gallup has been studying. As I mentioned, this is one of my favorite books, Strength-Based Leadership, but they have a lot, and they have a lot of resources, and you can go back to Gallup and take a look at that research. If you are a person who has high analytical, they've got a lot of research that backs what they talk about when it comes to strengths. I operate from the warm fuzzies here, so that's what you'll hear me say, but every once in a while I try to throw the stats in to honor my friend Tess. Do you remember Tess? Tess is now getting her doctorate degree away from us in DC, but we still do our podcast together, and Tess is always reminding me, "Allison, you got to have a little bit of data to back up the stuff you say from here." And so I try to do that, and I try to honor that. But what I love about the Superfund survey, sorry Tess, is that it provides common language for us to have conversations about what's right with you. I would much rather talk about the two. I mentioned that with Haley, the peace sign. I need two good things, is how I started every conversation with her. Now I know Haley, as a middle schooler, could have come in and told me all about, and she did, what was not going well, but we focused on the two good things. Gallup's got research to indicate that that matters, and that leads to engagement. But it starts with you. So the homework that I gave you, did everyone write that down to go back to your Superfund survey and take a look at the words and phrases that describe and resonate with you? These are my top 5. When you log into your report, you're going to see your top 5. And also, I don't know if you're aware of this, those reports are customized for you. So if you have input in your top 5, your description of input is going to look different in your report than mine does, because it's also with the other pairings. Gallup is just so good at that. So take a look at those longer reports. Again, it's not just one theme, but how they blend together. And then I mentioned this earlier, students will have the opportunity to learn a little bit more about their strengths. 3rd through 8th graders take a Superfund survey, 10 minutes, not timed. If they're in high school, they're going to take the same Superfund survey that the mentors do. So over the years, what we've done is the codes, and those of you who took strengths for the first time, please, Faith, will you wave? If you took strengths for the first time, Faith distributed the code to you. She did that for a lot of people, and I'm very, very grateful for her help. And then we tried to send out an email that says, this is what's right about these strengths. We want you to know a little bit more. Those codes come from us, from teammates. There's no charge to you as a chapter or program. Your mentees will also get codes, and those will come from us at teammates. There's no charge for you as a chapter. But what we want you to know is that those codes do cost, and so we're thoughtful about it and we're intentional about it. And the last thing we would want to do is send you a code and say, go take the survey and then good luck. We want you to have conversations about that. So that's why I had those follow-up emails where I tried to tell you a little bit more about that strength in action. So mentees have the opportunity to take the Superfund survey, either Clifton Strengths Finder or Strengths Explorer. This will be where the heavier lift comes from you as a program coordinator, because you will need to provide that code to the student. We'll take care of the mentor side, but you'll need to provide the code to the student. You'll get that from me, but you'll need to provide that to the kiddo. And what's most important to me is that someone is talking to that student about their talent after they take it. So what I've learned over the years, and some of you are strengths chapters and you saw this happen firsthand, a kiddo would get his top 5 or top 3, and he would look over at somebody else's and say, oh, I wish I had competing. Oh, I wish I had this strength. I had a wonderful conversation with a young man who had caring as his number 1 strength. And he said, don't tell anybody that, okay? Like, I'm just going to keep my report to myself. And I sat down with him and I talked to him about how important it is, what caring looks like as a strength, as a superpower. How I know that my physician, by chance, you can ask anybody in the world, do you know your Gallup strengths? I always ask my doctors. I ask my physician, and he leads with empathy. And I told him about that example and how important that is to me, that he has that strength. So what we want to make sure happens is that someone is having a conversation with a student. It's not just a code and then they get their results and they're not sure what these words mean. We're all fourth graders, right? You all wanted to, I see the cards, you all want to know what these strengths mean. Fourth graders need to have a conversation. Fifth graders, sixth graders, seventh graders, eighth graders, high school students need to have someone who's talking about this. You do not have to be an expert in the 34 or in the 10 themes to have a conversation about naming what is right with somebody. So we're going to do a little practice of this. Okay, I want you to envision yourself as a fourth grader. And you're going to turn to your elbow partner. And you're going to share fourth grade self. By the way, these were you, fourth grade too, I can almost promise. Fourth grade self, how one of those is showing up in your fourth grade self. And then the person listening is going to validate that and how you see it in them. Now, you may be brand new to one another or you may know one another, but help them affirm that talent in their fourth grade self. Does that make sense to everybody? Makes everybody uncomfortable. I know this is going to be really, really fun. You're going to be fourth grade you, and you're going to own it, and the person who's listening is going to validate it as if you are in your fourth grade self. Ready, set, go. Okay, I'm going to bring you back. It's a hard part of my job. I'm going to bring you back. Michelle, I'm going to bring you back. Okay, tell me a little bit about how that felt. I am so sorry. I would encourage you to have this dialogue at lunch. What did this feel like? What did this feel like? Tell me more.
We found versus input. I like things on a list. I like things, and I said I would say I see myself as adaptable. So I take your list and say it'll be fine. We'll figure it out. My adaptability is probably 32.
Marcy, do you feel like fourth grade you had input?
Yeah, and I was the last of 5 kids, so
Adaptability.
adaptive was my thing. It'll all be fine.
Absolutely. So when we think about this in our fourth grade self, Michelle, yes?
I was thinking, I put the fourth grade self faster than the adult self.
Absolutely. Michelle brought up the point. Fourth grade self can find this faster than adult self. I have fascinating conversations with fourth graders. They own it. They absolutely own it. If you go to our strengths Dropbox, I've got examples. I give them a piece of cardstock. and markers, and I say, tell me about this strength. What does it feel like? What does it smell like? What does it sound like? What does it look like to you? And they draw beautiful things in like 5 minutes of how this strength shows up. Yeah.
At what age do you see that kind of falling off? You mentioned fourth grade specifically a lot, but I'm thinking like I have a new mentee and she will be.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm guessing she. Are they less quick about it?
Asking about to the group back, I'm figuring it out finally. Day 3, I'm on it. When we talk with our students, like, do we notice there's a time frame where they start to own it less? I would say, in my experience, middle school, that starts to happen, where we get into comparison. For me personally, it was right around 5th, 6th grade, where I started to look around and think, oh, I wish I was this, instead of like owning. I twirled a lot. Like, I literally twirled a baton and also twirled around. And it was somewhere like 5th, 6th grade that I started noticing that other people thought that was interesting. And maybe I shouldn't do that as much. I think it's a conversation with your mentee. And Stacy, I like the point that you bring up. We want to have matches meeting at least 6 months before we introduce strengths. So you get to know one another, you're able to really build the relationship, start to establish some of the trust, and we don't want kiddos to think that this is prescriptive. Like, oh, I'm in teammates and now I'm taking a test and you're gonna tell me what's right about me. And mentors get grippy about this because they have now a resource, and so they come in and they're like, I'm gonna talk to you about your strengths today. This is not what we want this to be. It's open dialogue, and students are the best teachers. It's a focus on strengths. The mentor takes the super fun survey, students take the super fun survey, and then we've got some activities. Those of you who have sets of these cards, I love these cards. I have a set in my car. I don't even have children in my car anymore. If you are a lucky adult who gets to ride in the car with me, I'm like, hey, in the back I have these strengths to go cards. Let's talk about your strengths in action. These are some conversation starters. You can ask anyone this, and they don't have to know their Gallup strengths. What challenge and goal is on your mind? Great conversation to have. What would your friends say you do well? Great conversation to have. So if you are seated next to me on an airplane, I promise you these are some of the questions that I ask. We've got a deck full of them. Some of you will be getting them from your regional coordinators today to take home with you and try out. Some of you have probably sets of them. We love these cards. We designed these cards with our friends at Gallup. And our dear friend, Dr. Shane Lopez, also helped us write notes of hope. So inside are some postcards that are notes of hope that mentors and mentees can give to one another. But I do want to show you a little bit about how this is going to work going in the future. It starts with you. You've taken the super fun survey. Go out and apply them. Email me. Tell me how you see your strengths in action next week, next month. Please do not stick this in a desk drawer. Show this to as many people as possible and tell them about your strengths in action. Tell your board, tell your circle, tell your family. We want you to utilize the online resources, and I'm not going to go heavy into the weeds on this, I promise. And thank you, Tori, for keeping me on time. But I do want to show you what our learning management system is going to look like. Now, this is not done yet. I've been working on this for quite a bit, and I now feel like I have this awesome new training team, and I'm able to move a little bit more into my new role and give more focus. But this is something that I've been working on with our friends at CipherWorks. Essentially, a learning management. How many of you have ever done a learning management system? So if you take stop class, it's a really bad example that I just gave publicly. I'm not saying I've taken stop class, but if anybody else has taken stop class in the room, you may know that it's very similar to this. I have voiceover for each slide. You can't probably hear it in here, but I have voiceover for each slide. I also link the Dropbox. When mentors want to do strengths, instead of me getting in the way because I can't be everywhere, and instead of you getting in the way because you are very busy people, we want them to get that information as quickly as possible. In-person training is always best, 100%. But we also know that you've done a great job with the in-person training that you learned about yesterday, and you've teed them up well for this, that they, as grown adults, can probably figure this out and learn a little bit more. So each one of these slides is timed, and they can't skip ahead. They have to listen to what I have to say. And then as each of these slides advances, we also have some built-in resources. So I want you to be able to see what this looks like. I know you probably can't hear it, but it is my voice, and it's not perfect yet, and we are working on it. So then you can advance to the next slide, I think, if I can get there. There we go. don't know where the volume is.
The history of teammates.
So each of the slides that we've had in training now has auto narration to it, and then I've built in some videos. I've built in some different resources so they can work with this. They cannot speed through it. And it also is going to require still those steps of getting them a code first, the mentors, and that'll come from us.
And in Dawn's interviews,
And then once mentors complete this, they are able to have their mentee take the Superfund survey. And I'm relying on you then to have the conversations with the students.
And they maximized on it.
And you have already, in the 3 days, learned a ton about your strengths. You've learned about the language of applying them, about owning them. You've learned about how to aim them. You can have a conversation when you leave today, if you're in the grocery store and you forget to take your name tag off, like I do all the time,
But also,
and someone says, "What does this mean?"
so in
You can
other
explain it
words,
to
Don
them.
Clifton's research was
Same thing we would need you to do with the student.
not in
So
the
we want you to know that this is coming, it's on its way. I will not just like send it out to you and say, hey, let's use this. I will do webinars, I will do training and teaching on it, and we'll have mentors do some testing out. It is not perfect yet, so if you were to hear the narration, I will tell you it's not great.
So in the past, when we have done.
Yep.
Are you gonna be sending?
A former friend and colleague of mine, Don Clifton, who
Okay, you can always hear Tom. Yes, we will send the code out directly to the mentor, but CCing you, and then the mentor will have access to, they will need to have access to this, and that'll come through the central office. But once we go from there, we'll then rely on you to do that with the mentee side. And however you want to do mentee training, I can help you design it. You can build it into your new mentee training. We can do a webinar with students if you want me to come in virtually and talk to them. Or we have the options for me to come to community still. So I want you to think about, this is just beginning stages. I hope you're excited about this. But we want to be able to do this in a slow, meaningful, intentional way. Strengths has not happened in the last 2 years because I am not kidding. My focus was getting matches to meet. That was my entire focus. That was the entire central office focus. That was the entire is the word I want. Day 3. The entire intention of our match support and training team was to get students meeting. So strengths got put to the back burner. We want to be thoughtful. We want to be intentional about how we do this going forward. This is a great video that we did with Gallup years ago, and it features my friend Shane and a lot of our Gallup mentors. So I've built those in. We've also built in, I have a recording of strengths training that I've done. I've built that in as well. So the mentors have the option to be able to take a look at that. And we've had a few mentors test that out. Lenny, you star in that video, by the way. We recorded it from one of our Zoom strength sessions. Lenny always asks really good questions and helps me stay on the growth mindset side. So I want you to know that that's what's in the works. That's what we're planning to do. Again, here's what we want to make sure that we have mentors' interests. They don't have to do this. That's the other component too. When I was coming to your community, I think some mentors felt like pressured that they had to do strengths and they saw it as one more training or one more thing. They don't have to. But in order for students to do it, their mentor has to do it. And we want them to be matched for at least 6 months. We have local and virtual options. And then again, the mentees will receive code and affirmation practice, like you just did, from you.
I have mentors who have taken that elsewhere rather than have for another one.
Yep.
How do we let you know that they already have done it so their mentees can do it?
Yep, they need to do the training. If they've done strengths training,
They've done.
yes,
Well, and they've had their strengths, yes.
yes. We would be able, we'll just chat through that on how we want to do it. We might want to give them a little refresher on how to talk about strengths. Why we do it, we talked about this earlier. Positive correlation. If a student is looking forward to seeing their mentor, they have a higher sense of hope, well-being, and engagement. I can't stress the importance of this enough. A strength-based conversation, the one you just had, actually built your level of hope and engagement. The one that was in your 4th grade self actually builds on our sense of hope. I think you all have my email address. I know I went through this really quickly. We will have further conversations about it, but I want you to know what's coming, and I want you to know, and I think you've seen here at conference, we're returning to our roots when it comes to strengths. And we want to make sure that we have more mentors and mentees have the ability to walk around with their unique awesomeness and tell their talent story. Thank you all. We actually are we good on time? All right. Thanks, Tori. Headed next in here, what is the next session? Does anybody know? It's building a strategic plan, and I believe that is that's with Terry. Thanks, everybody.